7 Reasons Why Feminists Colonize Gay Male Spaces. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and if you're a gay male, or really basically anybody who is in the GLBT demographic that isn't necessarily a hardcore feminist, you've undoubtedly noticed feminists relentlessly taking over spaces that were once dominated by gay men. It's not just the official activist organizations and the pride festivals that have been taken over by feminism. It's much more than that. Feminists have gone on to demand more and more control over bars and nightclubs that traditionally had a majority gay male clientele, and even places on the internet like Grindr at this point, which no longer is a gay male hookup site at all, really. It's basically just the kind of sort of gay Tinder, and women are fully welcome. So, why does this happen? Why do feminists do this to gay men? Well, the root reason why feminists colonize gay male spaces is due to the same reason that they colonize every space that they can, which I'll state again as briefly as possible. Feminists believe that we live in an oppressive patriarchy where all men oppress all women to privilege all males, and they also oppress most of the other men too, and they oppress animals as well, and generally men are just really horrible leaders. And thus, the only solution to this is for feminist women to take over the entire world. Because once that happens, all of the oppressions on Earth and every other one of the world's problems would be gone. However, feminists don't actually want to be the leaders who are in charge, because legitimately being in charge is extremely hard and requires a lot of work. No, feminists don't actually want to work 80-hour weeks required to be a CEO or a politician, so they will instead sit around trying to get control over the CEOs and politicians. But of course, getting that control isn't easy entirely either. You can't just tell a CEO, I'm a feminist and you better do what I say, or I'm going to tell everybody that you're sexist. Unless you have a pretty good reason to believe that the CEO is legitimately afraid of you going around telling everybody that he's a sexist. Thus, feminists first have to engage in a massive grassroots campaign of indoctrinating people into the general values of feminism, so that eventually, after the masses in any given area are all generally feminist leaning, the professional feminists have the leverage of public sympathies on their side when they begin trying to grab for power over CEOs and politicians. And so, one of the places they always seem to start with in terms of the grassroots effort is the GLBT community, as feminists try really hard to demand that gay men all live under the watchful eye of feminist law. Yes, they'll try to do it basically everywhere, but gay men are often basically the low-hanging fruit for the following reasons. Reason number one about why feminists are so inclined to try to get gay guys to be feminists and take over our spaces is that practically every lesbian on the planet is a feminist. And so it's easy for them to say that gay men should be sticking up for their sisters or whatever in the spaces that they share together. The feminists love to say, gay bars are for us too, as if that means that they get to make the rules, despite the fact that I don't think anybody has ever been to a single gay bar on a night that wasn't girl for girl, which had more lesbians in it than gay men. This doesn't mean that gay men should necessarily make the rules, but I say that while definitely keeping in mind that gay men aren't incessant control freaks in the same way that feminists are. Gay men are pretty libertarian when it comes to how we behave at bars, actually. A gay male bar, at best, in my opinion, tends to be a bit of a free-for-all. People might touch each other a little bit, but they'll generally stop when somebody tells them to. However, when a feminist comes and starts ordering everybody around, or worse, lying and saying that gay men constantly grope women, Well, we can assume she just wants to control us and is using the notion that gay bars are supposed to be shared spaces as a ploy. The second reason why feminists try to colonize gay spaces and get everybody to be feminists is simply because it's easy. Seriously, this is the really ironic part. Feminists love to complain about gay male misogyny, and that guilt trip works on us because it's the reverse of the truth, generally. Most gay men love women, socially, and have largely had female friends, at least certainly while growing up. More so, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a gay man that didn't largely look up to his older sisters or his mother. Often, gay men were raised by a single mother or had a bad relationship with their father. Thus, it's super easy for gay men to fall for the feminist rhetoric about how feminism is just about equality and about helping out women, because gay men love women. Gay men have no idea, of course, how heinous feminism is to straight men, how horribly it treats them. And usually, gay men don't really care. They don't realize that it makes straight men feel ashamed about basically everything that is intrinsic to their nature, and they certainly don't realize that feminists will start pulling the same crap on gay men once they have an inkling that they'll have the opportunity to. If gay men realized just how much they'd lose once they let feminists get too close to them, and especially start making the rules, perhaps more gay men would sound a bit more like I do. But until then, I'm gonna have to keep making these types of videos. The third reason that feminists colonize gay male spaces is because feminists are very commonly sexually attracted to gay men, and their creepy gender theories have often led them to believe that they might be able to start having sex with us if they convince us to be feminists. This is something I've mentioned a lot in my older videos, though haven't talked about so much recently, but it really does happen. You take a woman who is more or less heterosexual but has massive issues with men and is probably afraid of them. Still, this woman actually totally wants the D, but is terrified of men who want to give it to her, likely because she was abused at some point or something. And thus, she ends up finding herself hanging around gay men a lot and having secret crushes on them. Next, she learns about feminist gender theory nonsense, which is patently untrue and claims that gender is entirely a social construct with no basis in biology, and that people shouldn't have sex based around their attraction to anatomy, or whatever. Basically, the Riley Dennis stuff. The feminist starts thinking to herself that all of this makes sense, not because it makes any sense, but probably because she was already a messed up person with major sexual hangups and a fear of her own desires for men. She then projects a bunch of that nonsense onto the gay men in her life and hopes that they'll become feminists and that they'll somehow start to believe that anatomy and gender don't matter, etc. But it's really largely motivated by the notion that she wants the D from an unwilling partner, because she's actually kind of creepy and rapey herself. The fourth reason feminists choose gay men as one of their favorite spaces to colonize is because they think that we owe them something because of the AIDS crisis of the 1980s and 1990s. I have made an entire video about that, which was basically about why feminists are controlling so much of the LGBT community. It's called Why Lesbians Rule the LGBT Community, so I won't go into it much further. Basically, some lesbians helped out gay men during the AIDS crisis, so now all feminists take credit for that. The fifth reason feminists colonize gay male spaces is because our very existence infuriates them. We make them angry just by existing. This is for two main reasons. One, they have no inherent mechanism to control us, like sex appeal. They can't use their girly sex powers over gay men. The second reason they get annoyed and infuriated by us is that our sexual desires and relationship patterns disprove their fundamental worldview. So they colonize our spaces seemingly almost out of what I can best describe as vengeance, or an urge to say, I'll show those gay dudes! I'll take over their spaces! You see, feminists believe that all men live with the primary motivation of oppressing and exploiting women to privilege other men, especially sexually, and this includes gay men, supposedly, and that's what male privilege allegedly is, the privilege of being benefited with what all men have stolen from all women. So then you look at gay men, and obviously this falls apart and makes no sense for several reasons that I won't even bother to list here, but feminists are a rather stubborn bunch, so they want gay men to admit that we have male privilege, and then when we won't, they just double down and try harder, seemingly out of frustration. It's kind of funny, really. Reason 6 why feminists colonize gay male spaces is because while gay men love women socially, we don't deal with them as much as straight guys. So we can easily be conned by female dishonesty because we don't have to deal with it in intimate relationships. I could go on and on about this one for a long time. I could probably make a whole video about it. But the point is fairly simple. Straight men tend to grow out of being easily manipulated by women because women are a lot more manipulative than men on average, and straight guys learn to be somewhat immune to it after a while, though it doesn't stop women from trying. However, gay guys rarely develop those defense mechanisms against female manipulation, so you take a woman in her late 20s who is thoroughly indoctrinated into feminism and also has learned over the years how to manipulate males well, and you introduce her to some gay guys, she'll often be able to have a lot of success manipulating them into thinking it's a good idea to identify as a feminist, even though it literally offers gay men nothing. Gay men get nothing out of the feminist deal. I mean, really, the only people who do long-term are cisgender women, but even they probably lose out in most cases. The 7th and final reason that I'm going to list for tonight about why feminists colonize gay male spaces is because it simply seems like the last area that has escaped their realm of influence. Keep in mind, of course, that feminists think that the whole world is a patriarchy where all men oppress all women to privilege all males, and that this includes gay men, so of course, what is more patriarchal than a space designed to be for men exclusively? The fact that we're gay doesn't bother them one bit, of course, because feminist theorists commonly think that gay men are only gay because we hate women. Basically, they don't actually believe that we are really gay. Fourth wave feminists won't often come right out and say this, unless they will, but it's not hard to get them to admit that they don't fully respect our homosexuality and our attraction to masculine men. Half the time they think that we're only gay because we think vaginas are disgusting. And I don't know, maybe we could get over that, like we can get over thinking Brussels sprouts are disgusting. I don't know. They resent us for being attracted to men. They resent us for being men, and they resent us a hell of a lot for having spaces designed to be designated for that type of socialization. And so they will never stop until every last gay bar is instead an intersectional feminist safe space. And so you, yes, you, should try to help stop them if you like having spaces that are at least sorta for gay men.